But I started talking about TRE and what I discovered were the benefits for me, and then obviously training, becoming a certified provider. I then started offering it out, and you reached out to me because something in it resonated with you.
Yeah, I think obviously, because I think it's basically a little bit, to be honest, my desperation to just deal with ongoing trauma, which came unresolved from different ways of me trying to addressing it. So, I've tried yoga, I've tried meditation, I've tried a lot of mindfulness as well, but they didn't feel like they were working to a full extent. And I knew you, so that was kind of like a major factor in terms of, I trusted that there's something in it with it. But at the same time, it just felt like, I think it possibly the fact that it had like the physiological aspect in it that sort of gave me a bit more confidence to just try it out and see how it works.
Yeah.
And see what it means and see all that. So yeah, I think partly because I'm not sure if it necessarily because I knew you, because that was the truth of the element that actually pushed me to find TRE. It's just because it just clicked into me that this is something that sounds different, so I want to try it. And I actually don't regret trying it. Obviously, it's great. I don't know why it's not more, mainstream really, or why is it not more widespread or more easily to be accessed. Because I feel it actually quite connects to like a physiological side, which I think most of other things don't actually address. And I'm not saying that yoga or meditation don't work. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that this, for me personally, TRE just felt quite organic and accessing the right way of releasing trauma and just,
because we focused a lot on there were two parts that certainly in the way that I was trained and what I believe in as well. There's obviously the tremoring, the shaking part, which is very, very physiological, and then there's also the grounding part, which is, to me, is almost more important than the tremoring, because it's what helps everybody to manage their state. And certainly when they're new to it, like you were new, tremoring and shaking can be unsettling if you're not used to it. I'm so pleased that you tremored easily. It makes my job a lot easier. Then we just have self-regulating, using the grounding techniques. Maybe you could just say a little bit about how we've explored it and how you've started to use them in your everyday life.
Well, yeah, I think you make very good points, because I think like the two aspects of, grounding and the actual shaking and tremoring, they kind of like go really hand in hand, and you sort of like really have to access them both. Weirdly enough, to the date, I feel like grounding tends to be a bit more of a fuzzy area for me rather than tremoring. And I don't know if I was actually, just because I was able to access the tremoring instantly, or like easily, in a sense, kind of like convinced me that this is something that works for me. And obviously just the very freeing sensation that I get, or that I got after tremoring, convinced me to actually keep on going and do the work. But I think now, thinking back, I think the grounding is, you're right, the grounding is quite important. And for me, as we spoke quite a few, like the smells were like one of the most powerful way of grounding myself. Like just smelling tea tree oil or certain type of smells really helped me with the grounding. In a weird way, so I think TRE helps you with the grounding as well. Like the actual tremoring does bring you down to a level of grounding that allows you to explore further both the grounding and the TRE. It's kind of like a cycle, really. They kind of like really go one off the other. But but you are right. For me, grounding was kind of difficult because I was quite high when we started.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it was, yeah, I was really kind of like well in the blue. And I stayed there for a good couple of sessions, I think,
Yeah.
even at the beginning. And I kept going back as well. So I think with the grounding, it was harder because I feel once you're that high, just, grounding yourself is sort times feels like an effort. But the fact that I was managing to tremor did help, sort of like slowly, slowly coming down and being able to gain that confidence and that trust that I can actually go through all of the states, and there's possibility to go from one to the other, come down, and not get stuck basically in any of them.
Thank you. And you mentioned there a little bit about how you felt afterwards, after the sessions. I'm wondering if you could say a little bit more about how do you notice how you start, and then how are you at the end?
Yeah, well, it's always a big difference, I can tell you that. So I think a lot of the time when I do come, because I know I've not been the best in sort of like keeping up in my own time with the tremoring just because of time. But even the times when I do manage to it, there's a huge difference in terms of, I think one of the biggest sensation is actually the one of lightness. I keep saying to you that I feel less heavy, or I feel like there's air and space in my body, which may seem abstract, but actually it's quite physical. It's like a very physical sensation. In terms of in terms of mental state, I think a lot of things that triggered me or help or push me from one state to the other at the beginning of the session tend to not do as much damage towards the end of the session, or have actually discharged all the tension or all the trauma or all the physical stuff and emotional stuff that actually get trapped in the body. So yeah, I think the lightness sensation and relaxation as well that comes from it. But I think relaxation can be quite a tricky one, because sometimes you think you're relaxed, but it can be kind of like deceiving. It can be kind of a deceiving type of a feeling.
Yeah.
But yeah, sometimes I actually do feel quite relaxed after it, and like a genuinely relaxed state of being. Sometimes I actually can be energized.
Yeah.
So I think it kind of depends, but I think the one thing that always keeps being there is just this sensation of being light, of having air, and of actually just being quite more connected to your body, and being more connected to your body, and also to like the environment around you, or more present in the environment around you, which I think is definitely not the case at the beginning.
I'm pointing here to my chart with the green, the red, and the blue.
Yeah.
Just in case people here are saying, "Oh, I'm in the blue, I'm in the green, I'm in the red." This is the polyvagal curve here. The green, social engagement; red, fight and flight; and blue is more the freeze response that we use in TRE.
Yeah,
Which,
I think
of course,
freeze is definitely.
it's all connected to the nervous system. What would you say has changed in your awareness of your nervous system, and also in awareness of your body as a result of doing TRE?
Oh, that's a really good question, actually. I think definitely with TRE, after practicing TRE for a while, yeah, I think you definitely get more aware of how your body responds to different triggers or different trauma or just different experiences that you have through your life or day-to-day life, really. And I think I have more confidence. I think one of the best things so far has been that I've gained a bit more confidence that I can deal with them, and that I can actually recognize them, and yeah, just experience them. You know how we were talking about being comfortable in the uncomfortable. A lot of the sensations that you feel when you've got intense situation, in stressful situation, death or life, or really quite strong emotional situations that happen on a daily basis, or that could happen on a daily basis. a lot of the time those get stuck in the body and you don't really realize it, and you just want to get out of them. You just want to, you're going to push them away, not feel them, not deal with them, or just want to, get out of that uncomfortable place. And I think with TRE, I've actually started, I'm not sure I'm there yet, but I've definitely started to, to be able to just sit comfortably sometimes in the situations that are not comfortable, and not actually get myself to that blue area of, just freeze, because that is my actual go-to response to big triggers. It's just like freeze, get overwhelmed, and then things just become fuzzy, they become crowded, you can't think, you're kind of like in a very how I try to explain it, it feels like cotton candy, like your brain is cotton candy, like you can't really get out of it, you can't really explore, and it can be quite debilitating. So that big blue area can be actually quite a debilitating one in the freeze zone. And I think now, weirdly enough, whenever once I've started doing it, I think I've gained so much confidence in it, and so much sort of like trust that, when whatever situation arises, I will be able to deal with it. But actually, I don't, whenever I actually get to that, I'm kind of like propelled down straight into the red, which is not, it's still kind of like a high one, but it's not, it's a more active one where you can do stuff, you can, you can take coping steps or healthy steps and good steps to sort of like discharge and find solutions, and just get space and air and get, be able to cope, because it's a stressful life out there for people in general, I think.
We all need mechanisms and tools, and as we say, TRE is just one tool. I happen to believe, based on my own experience, that it's really, really effective for dealing with everyday stresses, with dealing with more extreme stresses into trauma. I mean, it is used for PTSD and soldiers and veterans and firefighters and first responders and people who have a really, really stressful kind of everyday existence based up because of their job. But of course, the way that we're dealing with it here is kind of for our personal issues, relationship issues, people that are connected with us environment. And I remember that you and I had talked about your relationship with your little boy, when we talked about the co-regulation, and how as your system comes down as a result of tremoring and grounding and practicing this, that it has an impact on him and your relationship with him as well. Could you talk about that a little bit?
Well, I think it's kind of important to sort of like just as human beings nowadays, living in this crazy world with things happening at all the times, and sometimes things of great magnitude. I mean, just think of COVID, or think of wars, or think of there are big things happening. And I think it's quite important we are able to sort of give ourselves a way of coping with that, and a healthy way of coping with that, which I think TRE can do, and it certainly did for me. And I think otherwise we just get quite entangled in all of this stress, in all of this building up of unresolved sort of like issues that can affect other people, or can affect our own ability to sort of interact with people, or interact with the people that we love the most, really. So I did feel that once I accessed and I was able to like really work on TRE, really work on, getting myself down, I think it sort of like managed to improve my relationship with my little one, because he found a lot of comfort in the fact that I was very calm, or I was very, in stressful situation. Because, with little kids, I think that's kind of a good analogy, because, little kids are quite dependent emotionally on adults around them, from teachers to parents to grandparents to whatever, anyone who is literally around them. That's why I think when, little kids, that's why I think when little kids are together, things get inflamed quite easily. Because, if there's any dispute, things are just going to go up. Just a tiny little bit, tiny little thing can just get blown out of proportion. whilst I think with us adults, if we have that capacity and we should have that ability to just sort of like, not overreact and sort of like keep calm in the most stressful of situation. I think that helps them quite a lot, because that probably and possibly teaches them, first of all, not to go unnecessarily, like get stressed unnecessarily, but as well, I'm hoping it can teaches them to sort of like do it for themselves, or be able to self-regulate themselves, or start on that journey where they can learn about it. Because obviously with children, you have developmental limitations of what they can understand, but they can certainly pick up on the energy and the sort of like emotional state of people around them. So for me, it was really quite helpful just being able to, yeah, keep the calm and keep, because a lot of like, because my trauma and my stress was never actually outbursting. So I was never actually, showing it on an exterior, and yet he could feel it.
Yeah.
So it was not like, do you know what I mean? And that was kind of like really sort of sad to see, because, how do you, you either don't live the trauma, but that's impossible, or you don't go through the stressful situation, that's not impossible or realistic.
Yeah.
Or you see someone that's dependent on you emotionally suffer with you unnecessarily.
Yeah.
So I think with TRE, the beauty of it was that once you are able to deal with it efficiently or in a healthy way, or just quite frankly deal with it, then obviously, you get to enjoy and you get to give the most love and the most emotional stability to the people that matter the most to you.
What a beautiful note to finish on. I think we'll finish there. That's a lovely sentiment. It's great.